Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Our House 21, and now that I've got Project Bandit all wrapped up and out of the way, I'm getting back to work on some of my other cars. So in front of you, I've got my XO-1 Surly. So this guy, it has to get a few upgrades. Yes, Nathan. This car needs a few upgrades before it's ready to do speed runs. So first off, right now I've got a Mamba Monster 2 sitting in here just to get me some basic capability. So I really need data logging capability for my 2016 aspirations. So right here I've got a new Mamba Monster X ESC that has to be installed in this guy. So I need to desolder these connections right here for my custom cat pack and install this new guy. I also need to put castle connectors on here so that I'll be able to run the dual battery packs. Now, I've been debating whether I should just have the single and use an adapter cable like I've been using in the past, or just wire it for doubles and then make myself a little the jumper as I showed in some of the other videos. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do for this is just go ahead and do this as a double. So that will reduce the amount of wiring that is in play when I'm running on a 6S configuration, which should in theory make my losses a little bit less. Now the other thing I need to do on this guy is I have to install this bearing over here. Now some of you may have noticed that I completed the bulk of bearing swap videos, but I didn't publish my the benchmarking video. And the reason because of that, or the final benchmark, like I said, the reason is because I apparently made a mistake somewhere along in the installation. So inside the rear end here, there's a bearing that holds the rear pinion carrier, and that little guy has to be seated in properly. And I think I mentioned that in a couple of other videos. And apparently I didn't seat it properly, or something was wrong with the housing I was sitting in, but it was putting too much pressure on between the pinion and the ring gear, which was causing a lot of friction inside of here. So this carrier, or the casing, was actually heating up to about 150, 170 degrees Fahrenheit while I was doing a run. So I've got all that video. I'm debating whether or not I'm going to publish it, because effectively there was so much friction in here that it caused the bearing to fail. So I talked to Boca, they sent me a replacement. So I need to, while I'm doing this, I'm gonna take apart the rear end and then basically replace this housing. So I don't know if the problem was in the housing or if it was in how I installed the housing. Either way, this thing got really overheated. So there's probably distortions in there. And for the speed goals I want, I want to make sure that this is as clean as possible. So I have extra housing, so it's just... That's right, extra. So I have extra housing, so I might as well just go ahead and replace it, so I know that the part that's in here is good. And so I'll jump back in when I have something else to show you guys, so stay tuned. Okay guys, so as you can see, the Mamba Monster X is in there, but when you do these things, you discover all sorts of little things that you did not anticipate. Like, number one, you notice that the little hold down bracket is missing here. Now, for those who aren't familiar with this, for the Mamba Monster 2 class ESCs, this is a Traxxas bracket that goes on top and holds this thing down. But Castle changed the height of the cooling fan. Let's hold this so you see a little better in the light. So this is actually taller now. So this bracket, even though I took out my tools and opened this thing up tremendously, it just it doesn't fit. So, but that's okay, because I typically hold down my ESCs with industrial strength Velcro. It seems to work just fine. So the other weirdness is that Traxxas actually changed around the orientation of the positive and negative wire, which in itself isn't a big deal, but since I had my my cat pack set up here, I have to like wrench the wires around. So I'm still debating. I'm thinking about actually putting in a little Dean's connector, connect these guys, so that I can do some runs with different size cat packs, so I can experiment and see how much of a change in ripple voltage this monster has to the overall system. So I'm probably just going to go ahead and put in the Dean's connector here. That'll let me plug and unplug this guy, and that will be. Oh, thank you, Nathan. My son just gave me something and took it back. Okay, but I'm putting in a little Dean's connector in line here that let me plug in and unplug my cat packs so I can change around different size ones, experiment a little bit, and collect some interesting data. So I still have to wire up my Mamba or my capsule connectors to this Mamba Monster X. I decided to just go ahead and do the traditional two prong size so I can have a jumper. And so I'm gonna get that done here a little bit, and then I still need to break open the rear section and change that bearing. So I'll pop back in just a little bit and show you guys my progress. All right, guys. So I was able to figure out what was going on inside the rear end of my XO-1 here. Turns out the problem wasn't actually the carrier bearing itself. What was going on here is, at some point, I took apart the Cush drive here just to see what was going on inside of there. And basically, it's got a little piece of rubber isolator that acts almost like a shock absorber in a way inside the drive line to absorb some of the impact shock. So basically, get rid of the slipper clutch. But there's a certain orientation you have to put things back together. And the way I reassembled it, I inadvertently caused the tail shaft sticking out of it to stick out like maybe an extra 1/8 of an inch. So it's a very small amount, but that was just enough to put extra pressure on the bearing inside of there and cause, basically extra friction that, made a big problem. So if you get curious on your XO-1 and you decide to do the same thing, make sure you put it back in the way that gives the least amount of distance out of the back end of the shaft there, or else you're going to have the same problem I did. So now that I've got it all taken care of, see if I can do this here. So it is extremely clean. There's no noise coming out of there. So it's rolling nice and free. So very low loss. So when I go ahead and get my power leads back on, I do my bearing benchmarking, I suspect I'm going to get really, really freakishly low numbers like I got before. I still don't know why the numbers on the XO-1 were so much lower than what I had on my Slash though, because they're basically the same components. The big difference is that you got this carrier bearing in the middle, basically holding up the drive shaft, but that will eliminate high-speed vibration, but it won't necessarily make it roll more efficiently. So maybe my Slash was just beating the crap before I did my initial benchmarking, but even after I did even after I put in ceramics, the stock numbers from the XO-1 were lower. Now, I probably shouldn't compare the two cars as much because the gearing was a little bit different, and it was running on different power systems at the time. So I should really just compare pre and post bearing numbers for the same car. But it is what it is. So right now, I've got the Mamba Monster X in. I've got all my wires coming down here. And one thing that you need to be aware of if you put in the Mamba Monster X is that the ESC actually has an extra set of wires, or actually an extra wire that goes out to it that is an input for the third channel. So as you guys know, most 2-channel cars, you end up having a 3-channel receiver, and that's just so that if you're running a nitro car, you have the ability to control it with the same radio and everything. But Castle Creations decided to allow you to use the 3rd channel with the Mamba Monster X to give some extra programmability. So you can set that up to do a number of things, and I'll go into that more in a later video, just talking about some of the new advanced features of the Mamba Monster X. But in order to accommodate that, I need to have extra sets of wires sticking out of my ESC. So over here, you guys see my method where I use a servo extension in order to allow me to plug and unplug my ESC without having to break into the receiver box. So I just had to do a second one so I can get access to that. But I also, as you guys may know from my unboxing video a while ago, I'm going to wire up a temperature sensor for my motor. So I also put in an extra power lead back here. Where did it go? There it is. So I have an extra servo extension buried down in there that's going to provide power for my battery. Not my battery. It's going to provide power for my remote temperature sensor, and I'll be able to look up through my window at the back of the XO-1 and tell exactly what the temperature of my motor is without having to crack open the case or without having to crack open the body. So that's going to be a nice in-run feature. So I'm going to have a lot of in-car telemetry on this go around, and that's going to be good data to help me know how my car is doing in run without having to do a lot of craziness. All right, guys. So next time you see this thing, I'm going to have my battery leads all wired up. I'm going to have the car functioning, and I'm going to be doing my bearing benchmarking to see how much of a difference these ceramic bearings have actually made. So, and then after that, you're going to see me get the new Apex together. All right. So as always, remember the mantra: fly, fix, fly, break it, fix it, do it all over again. And don't forget to check me out on social media. That's Facebook and Instagram. And I also have a Twitter account, which is just kind of mirroring what posts up on the other ones. But, you know, don't forget to get out there. Try some new interesting ideas. You never know. Some of them might actually work. Some of them might not. But it's always good to use your creativity and see what happens. Sometimes you'll be really surprised at what you find out or just trip over. All right, guys. Our host will be signing out. Peace.